Hi, in this tutorial for total beginners, we will learn about the array system in 3D Studio Max. First, let's add the toolbar. If you don't have it, you just right-click and choose the extras. Here you have this extras toolbar, and this is the array. Inside you have multiple options, but we need this one. So first here we have this box. The dimensions are 5 by 5 by 5. So the array tool will help you to create multiple copies of an object in three modes. First, based on the position, where each copy is offsetted from the previous one based on an x, y, and z value. The second one is a polar array, where you can imagine you have a circle and you are creating the copies on the peripheral part of the circle based on a certain angle. It's like you have a point going from the center of the circle and connecting to the object, pivot point, and the second copy is offsetted based on a certain angle. The third mode is based on scale, where each copy is bigger or smaller than the previous one based on a certain amount, certain degree. So first, select the object and click the array. In this dialog here, let's start with array based on the position. Here, in this mode, you have three types of arrays based on the position. You have the 1D array. A 1D array is like, you can imagine that you have a line, a single line going from the pivot point, going in any direction. It can go up and down, and it doesn't matter the direction of this line, but you can imagine that all the copies they are following this, they are on a line. So I will put a value here in the x direction. I will put a value of 10, and I will click preview. Here by default we are working in the 1D mode, so basically a line. So each copy is offsetted from the previous one by 10 value in the x direction. If I add a value for y, for example, let's say also 10, in the top view, each copy is offsetted 10 units in the x and 10 units in the y relative to the previous one. Same thing. And if I add a value for z, let's say 20, so each copy is offsetted 10 units in the x, 10 in the y, and 20 in the z. But as you can see, it's a 1D array that they always follow a single line. Let's bring down all of these copies. Let's make it simple to understand here. I will only use the x. So I can reduce and increase the number of copies. You can choose instance or copy instance by default. If I click OK, all of these copies are instances. So if you change something in the dimension, all others will change. So I will undo, click array again, preview. So what is a 2D dimension? So if I click 2D dimension, basically a 2D dimension is you take the product of the 1D, all of these, imagine all of these are one unit, one object, and then you create a copy from this product, and this copy is offsetted in the X, Y, and Z also. So basically it's like you have another line going in a certain direction, and you are filling. So basically you are filling an area. In the end you will end up filling an area. So if I say, let's say let's start with the Y, just the Y alone, and let's say 10, and I will increment the number of copies. So as you can see, we take the product of the 1D as one unit, as one, like if they are one object, and we create copies from them. Each one is offsetted 10 units in the Y. I can create, increase the X also. I can, let's say 10 also. So if you look up from the top view, you can see that this copy is 10 units up and 10 units shifted 10 units in this direction. The third one is also the same thing based relative to the previous one, etc. So basically you are filling an area, a 2D area. You can also use the Z also. Let's say 15. You're still filling an area. I will bring back the Z to 0, also the Y to 0, sorry, the X to 0 and the Y to 10 again. So what is a three-dimension array? The three-dimension, you take the product of the 2D, the whole thing, as one unit, and create a copy from it in the X, Y, and Z direction. So let's start with the Z direction. Let's say 15. I will leave the Y and X 0 and increase the number of copies. So I can choose a value for the X, let's say 10. Also a value for Y, let's say 20. So the whole thing here as one object is copied, and each copy is offsetted with these values: 10 in the X, 20 in the Y, and 15 in the Z. So, okay, now let's talk about the polar array. Bring back all the values, all the settings to the default. Here in the polar array section, I will start by putting a value of 15 degree for the angle in the Z direction. And here we have 10 copies, the default. Now in the polar array, the 2D and 3D doesn't have any effect. So click preview. You can, if you go here, you can see that I have 10 copies and they are all going around the pivot point because this is the default. So go to hierarchy, click affect pivot only, and use the move tool to move the pivot point to a different location. Turn off affect pivot only. Now if I click preview, you can see that the center of this polar array is here now. And this value 15, you can imagine that there's a line going from this point to the center, and then another line from this point to the center of this box, and the angle is 15. Same thing between each copy and the next one. Now click affect pivot only and click reset pivot. If I move this box here and I want to choose a different criteria for the polar array thing, I can go here and click the last option, which is use transform coordinate center. You can see that the pivot point temporarily is shifted to the origin, to the 0, 0, 0. If I click preview now, the center of the polar array is in the middle of the grid. Now be aware that if you shift to top view, for example, while you are using this option here, you might see that the pivot, the temporary pivot, is shifting based on when you pan, it remains in the middle of the viewport. So if you click preview again, it will change. Now to avoid this, while you are using this mode, here instead of view, choose working. Click preview and preview again. This will avoid this shifting. Now don't don't forget to bring back this option here to the default, or whatever you like to work with. Don't just keep it on working. Here also be aware that to bring it back to pivot if you want to continue to work on your scene. Let's try to do this polar array on an actual circle. Go to shape, choose circle. You can draw a circle and you can select the box, and using let's say one of the snapping options like segment, for example, this option here, and use the snap to snap this to somewhere on the peripheral area on in this circle. Now choose the box and go to hierarchy, affect pivot only, choose align, click on the circle and align the pivot to the pivot point of the circle. Basically the pivot point is in the middle of the circle by default. Turn off this. Now click array. Now we are using the pivot point center, and click preview. Now we still have this 15 degrees. I can make it 35 degrees, and you can increase or decrease the number of copies. So this is how you can create a polar array on an actual circle. Now let's talk about the array based on a scale value. I brought back all the settings to the default. So here, let's say in the x-axis alone, also based on the pivot point center, if I say 200%, 10 copies, click preview. Okay, I will reduce the number of copies to 5. So each copy is bigger than the previous one in the x direction only, the width, by 200%. If I click OK for now, if I move these copies, so this is the original one, this is the second one. If I go to helper and choose tape and use the snap based on the vertex, if I measure this one, you can see that it's 10. If I measure this one, it's 20, so it's 200%. And same thing for this one, it's 40, and this should be 80. Again, because it's based on the pivot point, I can go to hierarchy and move the pivot point if I use the same value, 200, you can see that instead of these copies are being overlapping because it's the pivot point was here, now the pivot point is here, so it's like these copies are pushed away. This is the base of the scaling for this box. Of course, you can use all other axes, like if I want 150% in the Y. So each copy is twice the width and 1.5 in the length, and the same thing for the Z. Now let's talk about these settings on the right side. Also, again, bring back all the settings to the default. If you want to use the right side options, for example, I will start with the polar array. Click this arrow. Now you are using the polar array based on these settings. Now these settings here, you specify a range to fill. Now, again, change the location of the pivot point, because now we are using the pivot point center. I will put here 90 degrees, and I will click preview. Here I have this 10 copies. Now, here the idea is you take this pivot point. It's like, imagine there is a line to this box, and then you have a 90 degrees angle, and you want to fill this 90 degrees with this amount. So Max takes this angle value, divides it by this number here to get the angle between each copy and the next one. So here we are specifying a range to fill. The same logic goes for the position and the scale. So you can just experiment with these. There's no need to make this tutorial longer than it is already long. So you can just try it out yourself. So basically here, if you want to use the settings here, you need to activate it by clicking these arrows. So here are ranges to fill with this amount of copies. So basically that's it for this tutorial on arrays. Hope you like it, and if you do, please press the like button and subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next video. Thank you.